Hello everyone, it's me Lamani, and if you've been tuning into my live streams recently, you'll know that I've been doing a ton of life staff build testing in preparation for patch 1.2. Now, do I know what's going to be the best necessarily for the patch? Not really yet, but I have a good grasp on what I think are the top 3 life staff setups for patch 1.2. I'm going to give you 3 choices, and you can pick which one is going to best suit your style of play. Whether you want to be a supplementary healer, a main healer, or maybe you just want your life staff for a tiny bit of healing and some buffs, I think I can get everything covered and give you your best setup so that you can heal the most effectively with the patch coming. Now, before we get started, I just want to say thank you for all the support. If you want to connect with me, feel free to leave a comment. Join up in the Discord we have linked below. Follow me on Twitch. I'll be live streaming at 10 a.m. Central Time, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so catch me live today. Follow my Twitter, which is linked below, and my TikTok. I'm going to start putting some Twitch highlights there, but it's all kinds of different avenues. If you want to connect with me in whatever way you want, send me a DM on Discord if you have any questions, any build-related stuff that you want to pick my brain about. I am there to connect with you. It's my favorite part of doing this. So hit up all those socials, support me however you want to do it, and let's play New World together. You can also join my company on Eden. We are accepting everybody. Just add me in game, send me a DM, and I'll get you added to the company. Say something in Discord, whatever works for you. Anyway, these builds. I've been doing a lot of healing, PvP specifically, but PvE as well. There's all kinds of stuff I want to touch on once 1.2 is out and I've properly tested everything with the oncoming disease meta. And now a lot of you know there's some changes coming with patch 1.2 to the life staff. Specifically, it's beacon. We can't toe dip anymore. That's what I've kind of coined this term for. You put your beacon down, you run into it, and you run out and you still have your heal over time. Now, while there isn't a fundamental gameplay change, it's still pretty significant in terms of PvP and having to adapt a little bit to have some more self-sustain. Now, while I say that, beacon is still very, very strong, and you'll see that through the build guides and what I'm going to talk to you about. But some other changes coming are the disease meta. There's some perks on weapons that are going to apply a disease in PvP that are going to give a massive healing reduction. The one specifically is when you heavy attack and get a crit, you'll put a 40% heal reduction on a player. This is going to be king in PvP, so expect to see it. And that's why we're going to be taking some certain things, and I will address it in a video for patch 1.2 and give you the meta guide for PvE healing and PvP healing in the coming weeks. So stay tuned for that. So I figured what we can do is I'm going to pull up the skill tree and I'm going to cover each ability for the life staff and tell you kind of my thoughts on it, how I feel they're fitting into the current meta, what I'd like to see change with them, and then I will address what I think are the top 3 most viable healer builds going into patch 1.2. For those of you who may want to start healing, for those of you who are already healing, and maybe even those of you who have quit healing. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this life staff focused video where I give you everything you need to know for patch 1.2. All right, so here we are in newworldcalculator.org. I have my trusty old life staff up, and let's get rolling on our first build. This build, where it excels, it's going to be good for potentially in PvP. We're going to be using Orb, and with the diseases coming, what's the best way to beat the disease? Well, 1, fortify, right? Take less damage, we won't have to heal as much, but it's also a very good beginner solo main healer build. Because when you're using something like Orb, there's a lot of margin for error because you can miss an orb and not be punished very hard, right? As long as you're hitting one, at least one every other, you will have your buffs up constantly and you have enough cooldown reduction to get you through it. So where are we going to start? Everything you need absolved and you need blissful touch. That is absolutely necessary. These are going to be a ton of healing and don't underestimate them. We're going to take mending touch. Mending touch will be great in PvP and PvE because you'll be able to remove healing debuffs, but it's also great for all the PvE debuffs we'll be taking off. Then again, Sacred Ground like normal. Sacred Ground is going to be huge. You put somebody in Sacred Ground, then hit them with Orb to have a higher heal. Hit them with Light's Embrace to get a really chunky heal. Take Revitalize for cooldown. Desperate Speed for cooldown, and this procs on the hot on Orb. Every time somebody's below 50% and gets healed, that is cooldown reduction. 5% more healing for everybody, and Intensify. Keep that Intensify rolling. This is going to be the majority of what we're going to see. Healing side will always be the same on every single build, so just remember that. Then Orb. This is very easy. We take all the points. When you hit somebody with Orb then, you get the heal over time and fortify as well, as long as it heals them. You will also have a 3-meter radius that pops up when you shoot Orb and it hits the ground. That means you can shoot at your own feet and use it on yourself when you're solo playing. Orb is also very good for damage. You can start up a heavy attack and Orb right after, and you have 2 essentially heavy attacks right in a row. I've hit as high as 4K just pretty easily without any rends, stuff like that, depending on what your life staff level is. Then we take Bend Light, easiest heal modifier we have. We take Protector's Touch because Fortify is insane. Combo it with more Fortify on Orb because we can Fortify stack. And we have just a constant 15% Fortify because we're light and heavying all the time. You take Light's Embrace. And then what I would suggest doing is taking Protector Strength. We have a 10% heal modifier to also counteract any healing reductions we'll see. We also get the modifier here for any healing reduction, and it's just great. So what you'll do is put them in Sacred Ground, hit them with Orb. You get the biggest heal over time on Orb. They now have a bunch of buffs between Sacred Ground and Orb, so that when they go down really, really low, you can hit those 8-9k Light's Embraces. I would say, where does this build excel? Where would I use it? You can use this as a beginner main healer build. Like I was saying, you have a lot of room for error because if you miss an orb, it's not too bad because it's only on a 9-second cooldown, depending on what your stuff is. We have a lot of ways to get our cooldowns back up. So you can main heal super well, you have Light's Embrace for the chunky damage, you have Orb, and you can combo that with Blissful Touches to get some pretty big girthy heals if you need to in a pinch. Otherwise, it's also just great if you want to be a solo damage healer. If you're only using your life staff, great for leveling up. I would highly suggest using Orb in any life staff focused damage setup when you're trying to level it out in the open world. This setup is also going to be good potentially for PvP. With the diseases coming, we counteract diseases with Fortify. We also get 2 more buffs to apply on PvP targets from Orb of Protection for our Light's Embrace. So when you have group mode healing off, you can heal better using Orb because we can pre-buff them, and then we have 2 more buffs on them for Light's Embrace. So great for PvP, great for beginners, and great for higher damage. This will also function very well in PvE. I was using it a bunch in PvE, but I have a different favorite. So this is build number 1. I would say it is a main healer build for PvP and PvE, but it is beginner focused. So how do you play this build? You want to maintain Intensify with those heavy attacks, get them in Sacred Ground, bend Light, and then hit them with Orb. You want them to have the highest heal over time because it does last up to 12 seconds and it can top most people off pretty well. It also does a lot of just initial healing. You'll get heals for about 400 and comboed with a Blissful Touch. You can keep people decently high without ever having to Light's Embrace or Sacred Ground. Make sure you maintain Sacred Ground on the enemy, the tank, somewhere in a common area where a lot of people can stand in it because you'll get a lot of healing effectiveness there. Just Light's Embrace anybody who needs to be burst healed, make sure you try to get them in a Sacred Ground or at least do something like Bend Light before you keep it going. Perks you should be looking for: Fortifying Sacred Ground is always a must. Give them a Fortify on top of the Orb Fortify just to keep them alive. 2, Mending Protection. Once this is fixed in 1.2, Mending Protection will make it so when you heal somebody below 50% health with Orb, you have more healing power. So that's going to be crucial to healing. And then just as a plus, you can get Accelerating Light's Embrace. This will give somebody haste whenever you heal them. Maybe they can get out of a mechanic, but it's more PvP utility to help you escape and help others escape too. I think the best secondaries for this build are going to be for PvE. We're going to use the Void Gauntlet, and I've changed up my build a little bit, but I'm still fine tuning it, and this will be in my 1.2 healing meta video for the PvE section. In general, get a Void Gauntlet going with Essence Rupture. Essence Rupture does so much healing. For PvP, if you choose to use this build, use the Rapier. It's pretty much your best friend. It's going to get you out of whatever CC, give you a ton of gap closers, and a lot of ways to keep yourself alive. So that's what I would say, but you can also use this in a hybrid build setup with whatever weapon you choose to use. You want to use it with a spear, a sword and shield, a great axe, whatever. Orb is great to give you that Fortify. It's a long Fortify and a long heal over time, so it's great for weapon swapping. This is just a great all-around build, great for beginners, great for any setup. All right, this next build is my heal over time build. This is going to be one that supplements a hybrid build, or maybe you're just using the life staff as a little side piece with whatever else you want to main. So what we'll be doing is we will have no targeted healing. This is also a build if you want to main heal without targeted heals. I would change it up slightly, but I'm going to focus on specifically being a secondary healer here and only having heals and buffs. First, I'm just going to take Absolved, Light and Heavy, no mana. We'll take Blissful Touch just in case you want to actually heal with it, but we're going to go into Sacred Ground, get all that good stuff, put your Sacred Ground down and play in it. We'll take Desperate Speed, and we'll take Revitalize. This is going to give us some really good cooldown stuff so that we can keep our heals over time rolling, keep our buffs going. We'll take Enchanted Justice. This is going to proc whenever you pull out your life staff and you just get hit. It's going to give you that little healing ring. It doesn't heal very much and it's on a 2-minute cooldown. But if this is just your secondary and you're just looking to buff yourself in between, spear pokes or using your sword and shield, whatever you're doing, it does proc and it gives you some decent healing on top. We'll also then just take Sacred Protection to get an increased 5% heal baseline. Now, if I was main healing, I would end up taking Intensify, Divine Blessing, dropping Enchanted Justice for Mending Touch, but I am strictly focusing on the hybrid, no targeted healing build. Next, to supplement that Sacred Ground, we're going to go all the way to Orb of Protection, and you need Aegis so that you can use it on yourself. Then we're also going to go all the way into Beacon. We give ourselves some haste to supplement our build. We get a longer beacon, and it's just additional healing over time. And then what I do is I take Protector's Strength and I take Bend Light. You don't need Protector's Touch because we don't need the Fortify because we're not maining our Life Staff. So this is my no targeted healing, secondary healer kind of build that you use in a hybrid or just to buff yourself up if you don't really feel like weapon swapping very much. Use this for PvP, PVE, open world kind of play, but this is not going to be a main healer focused build. Sure, you still have Blissful Touch if you're trying to heal something like an expedition or something out in the world, but this is mainly a solo build where you are going to buff yourself up. It'd be great in PvP for that sustain, and so I think that's where it excels. Now, what I will say is, let's say you absolutely hate using Light's Embrace. How would I switch up this build a little bit to best fit your style of play? Okay, so let's say you want to main heal with this build setup. What would I do? I'd actually remove these 2 points from Beacon. I love having Radiance's Blessing and having that 5-second longer Beacon, but we just can't afford it in the no targeted healing style of build. We'll remove Enchanted Justice, we'll take Sacred Protection, we'll take Intensify, and we have to take Mending Touch so that we can get into Divine Blessing, and then we're done. This is what I would suggest if you want to main heal with no targeted healing. I think this would be the best setup if you want no targeted heals and you just want to rely on skill shot kind of thing. Sacred Ground's the exception. Sure, it's targeted, but it's not like Light's Embrace. So if you're looking for an easier build setup, or maybe you just absolutely hate Light's Embrace, this is what I would say to do if you would like to main heal. All right, so how do we actually play this build? 1, remember your life staff does damage, and make sure you put Beacon on your target now because of the 1.2 change for toe dipping. You'll just keep doing this, keep yourself buffed up. You know, I'll come back, put my Sacred Ground down, orb myself. You could do that before the fight or during it, and just keep doing whatever you need to do. This is my hybrid spear build that I'm using, a little bit higher dex. Just keep your cooldowns rolling, a lot of control. Again, he's hard to hit me, but you kind of get the point of it. You just keep yourself buffed up. You'll see that big Fortify just rolling through. Do all your damage, do whatever you need to do. When you need a bigger heal, sit in your Sacred Ground. Otherwise, just keep Beacon and Orb on top of you. That's pretty much it. Extra healing is Sacred Ground. So pre-pull, you can't toe dip anymore, so you can Beacon onto the target to make it easiest. Orb yourself, play in Sacred Ground. Just do it like this. Bait them into you. Just play to your heals. That's the best thing you can possibly do. And now for my last build, I'm going to give you my favorite for patch 1.2, the good old bread and butter, the nothing has changed with the life staff healing build that I still think is the most effective for 1.2 healing. Yes, there's some nerfs coming to Beacon and there's some changes for PvP healing, but I still think what we have been running is pretty good to use. Now, I say that without testing in 1.2, but just throughout all of my testing, PvP, PvE in the last couple weeks, I still think this build is going to reign supreme. Now, I will say, depending on how many diseases are on the other team for PvP purposes, that I will probably lean towards using Orb of Protection. So we'll have to see how it pans out, but these are my tentative 1.2 builds. So if you're not familiar with my bread and butter, we're going to go Absolved, Blissful Touch, Mending, take this, take all these, go into here, take the last one, Bend Light, Protector's Touch, Protector's Strength, and then we're going to go into Light's Embrace. Now, what I will say is we'll take Beacon, and you have an option, okay? When I PvP heal, this is what I do. So this is the PvP Lamani special favorite healing build so far. This is what I use. And if I'm going to PvE, I use this. So in PvP, when we take Speed of Light, this haste is fantastic. Every time we get healed up by Beacon, we get that speed buff. Now in PvE, we take Spirits United so that we have a higher baseline floor for our Light's Embrace. Just better healing, easier. In PvP, this doesn't have as much value because it's only the targets in your own party. So when you're playing OPR and there's 25 people, or Wars and there's 50 total, you don't get that much value out of that. We might as well just take another buff to help with Light's Embrace for everybody. This is my favorite version of the Life Staff, and I think even with the disease meta coming, not much has changed for PvE and healing. And I combo this best with a Void Gauntlet for PvE healing. I will have my Void Gauntlet finished up after 1.2 release, but I'll link my build in the description below. It's just so easy. We beacon, we pop down Sacred Ground, and then you start using your Void Gauntlet, Essence Rupture, Orb everybody, then start doing some damage with your Life Staff. It's easy, it's effective, but I will say this is probably the highest skill cap build. Why is it the highest skill cap? Simply because of Beacon. If you miss Beacon, you're gonna miss a lot of healing. It has so much PvP healing potential, and you'll see in all of my PvP, I used Orb for a while, but I just missed Beacon too much. I can get Beacon with proper snapshotting to be hitting for 700-800 a tick on top of Sacred Ground heals over time. It's insane how many people you can keep alive with it, and Orb just doesn't come close. It's crazy. So it's higher skill cap because you've got to hit that Beacon onto somebody. Yes, we won't be able to toe dip with it anymore, so we lose some self-sustain. But as long as you play within it, you can get pretty close when you're playing with a rapier and still, maybe pop Beacon down at your own feet on top of Sacred Ground while you're in the middle of a point. You have a lot of healing. The perks you'll be looking for, Revitalizing Beacon. That's going to give you self-healing when you're being healed by your own Beacon. Fortifying Sacred Ground, we want extra Fortify, why not? And then Accelerating Light's Embrace. Excellent perk there. Where does this build excel? PvP. It's going to be great for massive amounts of PvP healing. It will also be great in PvE. What I will argue though is that the Orb of Protection build is actually better in PvE because we're able to pump out some more damage, but also because I've been overhealing when I take Beacon. I do not need Sacred Ground and Beacon and Void Gauntlet Orb and Essence Rupture. It's just a lot of healing, and I feel like it's kind of wasted. So between PvP and PvE, I play more with Orb and PvE nowadays than I do with Beacon, although sometimes I just don't want to respec, and I love this build. For massive amounts of healing, for easy, just turn your brain off, this is going to be great. But again, higher skill cap just because of Beacon, and if you miss it, things could go south. You can pair this very well with a Void Gauntlet for PvE heals. For PvP, hit that Rapier. This is what I have in my Rapier PvP build setup, so check that out. But I guess you could also run a hybrid build with it. So if you want to heal a ton, you want to boost those healing numbers up in PvP, use this build. If you want to use this in PvE, switch out Speed of Light for Spirits United. In the most difficult content where you're going to be using a lot of healing, maybe an arena or maybe the new 66 elite zones coming, please use this build and you will heal like a fiend. All right, the last thing I just wanted to touch on really fast was what I do for my attributes and what situations and how I gear. One, I just gear in medium. I'm not in perfect medium right now just so I can keep revitalizing Beacon on me. It's the only thing I can find that was good and cheap. I play in a 22.9 medium, heavy helmet, heavy chest, medium gloves, light pants, medium boots. Ideally, I'd be running something like Void Bent, and then I'd find my healing perks on these 3 items, my hands, legs, and boots. Then I just either throw in the Rapier or the Void Gauntlet have been my go-tos, and if I'm doing any kind of hybrid stuff, I love playing with the Spear. Now for attributes though, here's how I set it up. So depending on what I'm doing, if I'm in a war or I know I'm in some kind of coordinated OPR where I'm going to be getting stomped on, okay, I will go to 170 con. I will eat a 30 con food, the calamari, because it's cheap, and then I'll just blast the rest focus. All right, this should give me enough healing that I'm still pumping pretty hard, but I will never die. I sit at about 13k health once I have it up to 200, and I get that 20% increase to armor. This is the tanky healer attribute distribution. Now, what do I do in general, though? I leave my con where it's at. I leave it at 109, and I've been just focus pumping. I'm going straight focus. It is crazy how much damage I do with my life staff in the setup. I was hitting some corrupted enemies who had full rends on them for 3k with a heavy attack on my life staff. I think that's insane, but what I'll do is I will just eat a 30 food, get my con up higher so I have some more health. I set it at 11k health still, and I just blast heals. I do a ton of healing, a ton of damage. Sure, I take a little bit more damage, but in PvP, I have that Rapier to get out of it, and in PvE, I have the extra healing from the Void Gauntlet, and it's enough to keep me alive through pretty much anything. So this is the absolute heal pumper attribute distribution I would use. Just eat a con food, or if you feel good in this health, eat a focus food and get more pumping. That's what I would say. Any kind of hybrid build, when I'm doing a hybrid build setup, I will go 150 focus, and then like I'll pump dex, right, for my spear. I'll just pump dex all the way up for more damage. This hits hard. This hits really, really hard. Then you have the option, do I want to pump the con food or do I want the dex food for more backstab damage? Right? Totally up to you. But in a hybrid build, I go at least 150 focus, and then at least 100 con. These are my attribute setups for everything. All right, last thing. What am I doing for secondaries? Now, I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to fully commit to for 1.2, but I can safely say I'm going to be using Void Gauntlet for PvE and Rapier for PvP. What I'm going to do for all of you is, if you look in the description, I'm going to have 4 separate builds linked. One is a pure Void Gauntlet build focused on healing, and I'll touch on how you use that in a future video. It's a full support setup with the life staff for main healing, things like expeditions. 2, we have a hybrid damage Void Gauntlet. This I would use in PvP. You can use it as a damage main. You can use it out in the world. You could go technically full focus with it and still do damage and healing with it if you don't ever want to respec. It's great all around, but it's mainly for damage. 3, Rapier PvP. It's what I just use in all forms of PvP, open world, to get away from people or keep healing people in a group. It's not necessarily damage oriented, so you're not going to be killing people with it. It is more so used for the utility. And then 4, you will find my spear favorite damage hybrid setup if I want a PvP 1v1 out in the world, just hunt people down. So check the description below for the 4 recommended secondaries I have in combo with these setups, but feel free to use whatever you want to use. Again, I just put this out because I think going into 1.2, there's a lot of questions on, okay, how are we going to heal with diseases? How are we going to heal without beacon toe dipping? And whatever else AGS has up their sleeve. So I wanted everyone to be prepared going into patch 1.2. If you're a new healer, if you're an old healer, if you're a current healer, I hope this helped you, and I hope it's going to get you started for the next patch and have a better understanding on what are the best trees to actually heal with. As always, if you want to connect with me, drop a comment, I'll reply, ask any questions you have in the comments, and I will give you an answer. It's important that I connect with you. I want your questions to be heard. 2, join our Discord. Link is also in the description. Feel free to drop me a DM if you have anything specific, but we have some fun stuff going on in the Discord with over 1,000 people now in there. 3, if you want some additional content, follow my Twitter or my TikTok, whatever works best for you. If you just want some of that extra content, go and give it a follow. We will be doing a giveaway through our Twitter and our TikTok once we hit 15K YouTube subs. So stay tuned for that and follow early if you want. 4, if you want to join our company, hit up Eden, send me a message in game, and I will get you added. No worries at all. And lastly, if you want to support me directly, feel free to hit up my Patreon. I think it's important to recognize all of you who are supporting me directly, so thank you Jacob, Adrian, Thugius, Shane, Gil, Shmeezy, Anarino, Ajuro, Nathaniel, Thonar, Nicasio, Joseph, Tarvi, Generic Guy, Ronan, Ralph, Bob, Florian, Blue Beagle, GDB, Jay Kitchens, Wentz, Dexter, Rich, Rob, Matthew, Josh, Michelle, Nade, and Rich. Thank you all so much for your support, but thank you to every single one of you who are just watching this video today. As always, thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and thank you all for being you.